I'm glad that you were able to join me because I haven't had anyone on the program yet with your expertise.
I work as a technical specialist in the climate change and disaster risk reduction. I produce climate risk assessment for infrastructure or any of the asset, as well as I design early warning system for natural hazard like cyclone, tsunami, hurricane, flooding.
Right. And so I understand that there were 2,000 people that needed to be evacuated during
Yep.
social distancing.
That was a quite huge experience for us, actually, when you have this COVID-19 is ongoing. So you have to maintain your social distancing. At the same time, so you have like a cascading impact, additional natural hazard where you actually people need to evacuate and they need to respond to saving their lives and ensuring that actually they're safe from biological hazard like a COVID-19, or at the same time the natural hazard that are coming from the shore with a huge wind and storm surge inundation. And one of the particular things that helped in this case is the early warning system that we designed. And it was proven actually quite good system, which able to predict the accurate storm surge. It able to tell what is the exact wind speed, where is going to be landfall, and how much actually water you're expecting in your land or in your house, so that you're able to well prepare yourselves at least 2 days in advance. And the risk communication has been made so clearly that people understood and internalized the risk, and they actually maintain those kind of safe evacuation, maintaining those safe distancing. And almost 2,000 people actually evacuated in one small island, and there was no casualty. Similar sort of cyclone in the past, 87 to 100 people was killed back in 2015 or back in 2012. There's always a short-term benefit especially on the carbon emission. Notice that actually there has been a lot of statistics came out that China able to actually reduce their emission almost 25%, which is around 200 million tons of carbon because of this, lockdown, air mileage, and all sort of things. In the long run, maybe it gives us behavioral changes. People actually working from home, they may be sometimes maybe more productive than the past. And they're able to actually communicate, so which is quite important. That yes, we don't need to fly every time. You may actually communicate over Skype or even using a remote communication. We need to also give quite high priority to climate change impact, and as well as how actually you can reduce those carbon emissions. Because if we don't actually action on those and making sure that Paris Agreement is fulfilled, we may going to face a similar sort of impact. 500,000 people could be die by 2050, but we may not able to realize some of those scenario because it's more global, and you are not able to visualize those kind of scenario locally. I have a doubt that how many people will be willing to go back to their exactly normal life. The example that you may see in Wuhan at this moment, they come back to a normal state, but still many of the business is struggling. Mm-hmm. They don't have any customer. So what's happened to the people? Why they are not actually going there? So maybe these are the things maybe we can take into consideration that to see actually what changes are making in our behavior, this kind of pandemic situation.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in Wuhan. I was working over in China for a while. It was about 5 o'clock at night, and I was on a bridge and didn't know it because the pollution was so bad. However, Wuhan is absolutely one of my favorite cities I've worked in China, like by far, because it surprised me the most. I loved it there. Seeing the streets completely bare as they were and having spent time there and knowing what it's really like, I mean, it must be terrifying for them.
Yeah. Same. I work advisor for Chinese government as well as some of the Chinese Academy of Science. And one of the major problems that I faced in the past, I could not able to stay there more than 3 to 4 days, especially in Beijing, because of the pollen and air pollution.
So what's it like in New Zealand? From our understanding, New Zealand fared clearly quite well.
We did an extensive and remarkable, actually, COVID-19 response. Our government was quite proactive on this, especially our Prime Minister. The information that has been passed to us was quite clear, quite informative, and it actually leads us to believe that, okay, what is the intents of the situation?
What can we learn from those countries that have done well?
So how actually we can learn from others is quite important.
Yeah.
So it's not only actually the tracing, or it's not only the testing. You have to have everything should be integrated. One is your policy, your response mechanism, how you're tracking, how you're tracing, how is your other facilities is ongoing. So you have to put it in an integrated effort rather than one single kind of effort on the overall response. And also you need to be a little bit forward thinking rather than what is happening for last 2 weeks. You may look at a little bit longer period time scale, that what could be the scenario look like and what could be the option we may see in a business as usual scenario, or maybe a more defensive scenario, or maybe more resilience kind of scenario. It's quite a unique challenge for public health, that if any measures are only effective as the weakest link, the more neutral actually and trustworthy the communication we can provide, and the higher potential level of compliance we can actually get. And that's the same thing happened with natural hazard or disaster risk reduction area, that if you cannot actually communicate the information, they will never internalize and they'll never respond. So there'll no compliance you'll see, and they'll be suffer at the long run. The transition time between the response to recovery is quite different between hazard response versus the pandemic response. In a pandemic situation like COVID-19, you don't have any vaccine in place, you'll actually never go back to normal situation, or you'll never go back to recovery full phase. So you always have a bounce back scenario. And then you need to think of that, what are the function in the response you need to be make more strengthened, and what are the function in the recovery you need to be taking more cautiously, so that you're able to make sure that the situation that you faced one time, the second wave actually doesn't hit you more severely. And sometimes the third wave could come again, you never know. You have to rely on science, unless otherwise actually there will be a lot of myths around COVID-19. Similarly, there is a lot of myths around climate change, but the countries and individuals are basing their response, or what actually the health professionals are saying, that need to be more listened. And similarly for the climate change, we must also take action in line with what actually science tells us.
Where would you advise people to find the most factual information about COVID-19?
Globally, the WHO is our head for the public health, but nationally, your National Disaster Management or Civil Defense Authority, who is actually responding to this COVID-19, absolutely. For me, is also quite strange. If I'm a person who actually travel at least 3 minimum travel in a month, and staying at home, quite different kind of environment, different kind of understanding. So one of our culture is like we do a lot of coffee meeting and then sit together and discuss to major thinking. I have a music from the YouTube which I runs behind a Starbucks coffee shop now. And that gives me to think about what I need to do next.
So what do you do for fun?
At this moment, not much.
Yeah. What's the first thing you're going to do when you get out of COVID?
I maybe like to go to the coffee shop with friends. Thanks a lot.
It's been a pleasure.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.